Wealth is a Choice podcast. Boom.
Let's listen to it. Let's listen to it.
All right, Senator Damoose, thanks for meeting with me today. I wanted to talk to you about, I talked to a lot of people that feel like government is kind of untouchable, meaning like, I don't know, it's out there working, and they have no influence or ability to help move it. And so people get frustrated.
They feel powerless.
They feel powerless and they feel frustrated. And I've seen you at a number of events. I've seen you talk to groups of people. I've seen you talk to people. And I know that that's not how you operate. And I've heard you explain it. And thought, well, this would be a great platform to help you explain it. And I wanted to, we were just talking about this a minute ago, but I wanted to just, my impression is not that. So like I've met a lot of wonderful House reps and senators, and you guys are receptive to problems. And one of the ones that I just mentioned to you is where, we found out that foster care kids under the age of 18, some of them can't cash a check because they can't get a checking account open. And so you hear about a problem, and then we make some, dig into it a little bit and meet with a House rep that's working on problems, and now they're looking into it, and now maybe something can happen and something good can come out of that. So my experience is that there's a wonderful method, and there's a wonderful avenue for the regular person to get engaged. And I think you've always done a great job of explaining how that role works for the citizen.
Well, sure. It was funny because I always go back to, we used to make films for a living before I did this. I've only been involved in politics for 5 years, and I got to interview all kinds of sort of state and national leaders. And I remember one of the most profound things that anybody ever said to me was just about the most simple thing I've ever heard. But it was Senator Mark Warner from Virginia, and he and I were talking one time, and he knows I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat guy, and I was asking about different things, and he said, John, one thing you need to remember is that most people who come to Washington really want to do a good job. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I mean, we're so polarized to hate the other guy on the other side. And that's what I found at the state level, and it's been extremely refreshing, is, there are people who are out there just posturing and treating this like a boxing match. But there's a whole lot of people on both sides of the aisle who left behind their lives, whatever they were doing before, and came here because they thought they could make a positive impact here. The other thing that's been really refreshing to me has been that very thing, because I used to think that there's no way these guys, I can write a letter, they're never going to see it, I can call, it's going to be to some assistant, and they just sort of, thank you very much, hang up the phone. And it's not that way at all. We do listen to our constituents. We want to listen to our constituents. We have a vested interest in proving to our constituents that we're listening to them. So when I get calls or emails, I may not see every one of them, but I know what's being said out there. And if people give us ideas or those type of things, it's not going into a black hole. We literally have to do it. I would say when I came down here, the other thing is made me encouraged about our system. There's a lot to be discouraged about, no question. But is this idea of being a representative of the people is a real thing. If you would have asked me before I came down, I probably thought, well, that's a romantic idea. Oh, you're a representative of the people. But you get elected, you've got an agenda, you come down here or go to Washington with 4 or 5 things that you just want to hammer through, and you're on your mission. And what I quickly found out was that we're legislating on all kinds of stuff, some of which I've never even heard of before. Okay. And that's not just me, it's everybody here. And there may be 2 or 3 things I'm an expert in because if I ran a small business, or I may know tax policy, I may know these things. But it forces you to actually rely on your people who you trust back at home. Because how else am I going to know how to vote on, for instance, foster care? I've never experienced the system, and I have a vote on that. So it forces me to drive deeper into the opinions back home of what they think. So it's encouraging.
So one of the places I met you was at a bear convention. And you had not bear hunted before, right?
No, never.
But so as an example, that's a very small group of experience. There's not a lot of people in the state or in the nation, but definitely in the state that have bear hunted. Legislators rely on others' expertise to help them understand their world, right?
You have to. And it's funny because I would say of all the bills I've introduced, most of them, probably 80% of them, were ideas that were brought to me by a constituent, by someone back at home or a business back at home. That's my job. They get, and I take that job seriously. Anybody from my hometown, for instance, has one person in the state house and one person in the Senate. And if we're not there to be their voices, they're losing out, and we're not doing our job. So I've got a big bill, for instance, that was something I would have never gotten involved with related to Mackinac Island ferries. But I represent Mackinac Island. The only voice they have down here is me. And so I have to put that into law and carry it through. This happens all the time.
Okay.
That's
right.
where we get all our good ideas.
Yeah. Is there a way for constituents, I don't, like, how is a constituent productive? So how, is there a productive or is there an unproductive way? Could you give any examples or stories?
It's interesting because we live in such a time where if you just sat back and watched TV or cable news all the time or just read things on the internet, you would get the impression that being really aggressive and angry and forceful is somehow a way to get things done. But you got to remember that everybody in your government is just a human being, and we all react naturally. If somebody's swearing at me,
right.
I go into defensive posture.
Right.
I don't care what they have to say, but I will talk to anybody all day long, whether they agree with me or not. If they came to me and said, "John, I think you're wrong on this. Would you mind me explaining my point of view?" Mm-hmm. Have at it. That's why I'm here. I love being proven wrong or being shown where my thinking is off and learning new things. This is nothing but good. But for some reason, I think it's modeled from the very top. We see these people yelling and screaming and calling names, and it's just not effective. And so, somebody back at home, they can call our office. They can come in and set up an appointment to meet with me. We have things like, we call them office hours or coffee hours where we go meet with people. They can come to that. They can send us emails are really effective. That's probably the best way to get to me. But a personally written email where they're treating me as a rational human being,
right.
and they're kind and so forth, and like you would do in the business world.
I like that you said you like to be proven wrong. Right. The first thing that came to my head was, when they call it flip-flopping.
Yeah.
They take what somebody said at one time and now you're saying something different. No, I'm not like, well, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
I know.
If you think one thing and then have new information, you encounter new information and you don't change your mind, then that's the problem. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
It's funny because I do have core held principles which have now been tested over 50 years. And so I'm not violating those and core held beliefs. But I'm not the fountain of all wisdom. And one of my closest friends is a senator from Detroit who last year she had the most liberal voting record in the state Senate. And I'm a very conservative guy. But what I look at her is not the other person or somebody to be defeated. I say to myself when I look at her, there's something about this woman's whole experience has led to her being a liberal Democrat from Detroit. There's something about my experience which led to me, a natural outcome, being a conservative Republican from northern Michigan. What can I learn from her?
Right.
And what can she learn from me? And the point is, by being graceful and civil and building a relationship and a friendship and being kind to one another, there's a bunch of things I've listened to her on where she's had bills that caused me to question my thought. And I know I've had the same impact on her, where we've been working together on bills, and I say to her, you got to look at this through the eyes of a rural northern Michigan community. And she said, I never thought of it like that. So that's when government is working, that's how it's supposed to work.
And she's had bills where she's passed that have surprised, I think, where she's supported that have surprised some of her people, related even to hunting because it's relevant to, access to guns and stuff in Detroit. That where she's supported things that some people have surprised. Well, what do you have to do with hunting? Well, technically, this is, very relatable.
I think we're not talking about the same senator, but I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect example. You're talking about Sylvia Santana.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and perfect example. I had a free day this summer, and I was going to come down, and do something in Detroit. I had to drop my son off somewhere, and so I called Sylvia and her husband Harvey, who used to be in the state house. And I said, I've got a free day in Detroit. What would you recommend that I see? And Harvey, her husband, said, I'll do one better. You're going to spend the whole day with me, and I'm going to give you the ultimate Harvey Santana tour of Detroit.
Oh, wow.
It was fascinating. We got in his car. We went all day throughout the city of Detroit, and he pointed out some things to me that I never would have known on my own. Here's a prime example. Okay, in this year's budget, House Republicans, and they did a good job cutting out waste and fraud and going after some things that they were concerned about. But there was a sort of a mantra growing around saying, we're done funding splash pads and swimming pools. It just became a thing. No more splash pads.
Cry. Okay.
It was a rally cry, exactly. And it was because in recent years, there's been a lot of Democrats in Detroit who got funding for swimming pools. Well, that sounds reasonable. Maybe that's not the role of government. Harvey took me to a swimming pool in one of the neighborhoods there. He said, John, I want you to look around. And there's 100 kids down there. And before they had this pool, they would have been running around this neighborhood unsupervised. And you've got parents all around, and you've got a policeman at this entrance and at this entrance there.
What a
he
great
says,
place.
you tell me how, he says, you tell me how that's wasting money.
Right.
And it radically changed my view on it. Now I support those swimming pools. So, but as a guy up north, who our kids just go swim in Lake Michigan, I never would have known. It would have never occurred to me what's going on. So you've got to be able to build those relationships.
And be open to change. There was a quote. It was at the, I think, Jefferson Memorial. And Ryan, maybe you can help look it up. You might have to use your phone. I don't know if you can. But it was toward the end of it. It said something like, "We can't." I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, "We can't expect the clothes to fit us as a child now once we're a man," or something like that. And it was all related. And he used a word like something like our barbaric ancestors. You know what I mean? Like, he used language and words that said, if we don't change, you know what I mean? How ridiculous is that? My clothes when I'm a little child don't fit me when I'm a man. Yeah. And I think he was saying they would think that we're barbaric. You know, the future will think we're barbaric. And they must be able to change, you know, what we thought was normal at the time. It's not going to be normal later on.
Well, and everybody has those core held principles that you just don't violate. They can be formed in faith or in your ideas about government and things. But that doesn't mean you just stop listening and stop learning. And I that's been the most fascinating part of this job for me so far.
Well, you got a lot of people. Hopefully, you have a lot of people coming to you, educating and informing. And that's one of the things I actually like about this. I learn each time I get to talk to somebody. So let me know if you find that. It's really cool.
I've got one. It's we might as well require a man to wear still the coat which fitted him when a boy as a civilized society to remain ever under the regimen of their barbarous ancestors.
That's great.
Isn't that great?
It's really great. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, and yet it's now considered some great sin to, as you said, flip-flop.
Change your mind.
Yeah. I mean, think about the implication.
Yeah.
Are they actually saying? I mean, you could turn that around on something. So you're actually saying that you want me to just mindlessly stick to everything I started believing? Miraculously, I had it all right at 21 years old,
That's
or something
amazing.
like that,
Yeah.
and I'm never going to change from that. That's a fool in my mind.
Yeah. No, that's good. So practical steps that somebody has to engage with government. So I see something that I think is wrong or needs to be improved. You said send you an email?
Yeah, send me an email, call my office. And here's the thing is, you know, we get all kinds of different communications. We get form emails where I'll get 150 people saying the same thing. And that's fine. It tells me that it's a big issue out there. But if I get I won't even look at all the ones that are said. It's like, okay, people are worried about such and such, so file that away. But if I get a note that's written, and it doesn't need to be perfect penmanship, it doesn't need to be perfect wording or anything like that. I'm not expecting everybody to be a great writer, but if I get a
AI
note
generated.
Yeah, exactly. But that's who knows about that? Yeah. That's going to be scary. And I see Traverse City, Michigan, but with the minute a note comes in or an email comes in, and it's from a constituent, it says, I'm from Traverse City, I'm from Petoskey, I'm from the Eastern Upper Peninsula. Everybody in the office knows I need to see that because this is somebody who I could run into back home, and I better be prepared. So that is a code right there. And if it's thought out and custom written to us, we pay attention to that stuff all day long. And if we don't, we're not doing our job. And I know there are people who don't necessarily do that. Call them out on it because that's not what we're sent here to do, is just ignore everybody. So,
So let's say you don't live in your area, but you identify a problem or something that could be improved in your area. Just as important? or do they reach out to?
Their own person. It's important, but it's secondary. I mean,
Okay.
but I'm sensitive about this because I live in northern Michigan, which is a huge resort destination,
Right.
and we love that. I mean, I'm glad that people come up and enjoy our area and buy second homes there and
Yep.
come for vacation. But I'm very cognizant of the fact that even though I know a lot of those people and count them as my friends, the ones who have hired me to work for them are the people who live there year round.
Okay.
And those interests don't always line up. Often they do.
Got it.
But
Oh,
there
that's a
is
good point.
there are times where they don't. And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, my
So
boss.
a tourist might want something to happen,
Yeah.
but the local doesn't.
And I've had that before, where tourists are reaching out, and I will probably respond or something like that. But at the end of the day, I don't represent them. I represent the people who live in the district. They have a representative, though, so they can reach out to their representative who might come to me and do those type of things. But our job is to care for those who've sent us here. That really is our job. So.
What about should people reach out to senators and House reps on committees if it's like
Yeah,
if this,
absolutely.
so if they have a specific I've got XYZ problem and there's an XYZ committee,
Yep, you
they
bet.
reach out to their own representative and then also reach
And
out
also,
to them.
and keep your eyes on, informed. The more informed a person is, the better it is. And it's very easy. There's a ton of news sources. You can find out what's happening in the legislature. And if there was an issue that was a big deal to you, and let's say there was a bill introduced on it, come to the committee. Anybody is allowed to testify in
Yeah.
front of the committees. All you have to do is fill out a little card that says, I'd like to testify. And again, I know most people, I've talked to so many people and encouraged them to do this. I could never, go up and before a Senate committee and these things. And I remind everybody that we're just normal people.
Right, yeah.
And there's nothing to be intimidated about.
Right.
There's nothing. This is the way our government is meant to work.
Right.
And so I find it really compelling. And you know what? Other people do this too. I've had this happen when I'm not necessarily on board with a bill, and the other senators will find somebody in my district to testify on it.
Oh, okay.
And now I got to listen, because so it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
It really does. But there's not this. I guess I learned this from we had a film production company before
Okay.
I did this, and we did some advertising and marketing, but we produced national television specials. All formed the company around the idea that even in this divided age, there's got to be certain great things about America that everybody could celebrate. We started in the year 2000, and we were just as divided back then. That was the year where the presidential election was decided by the Supreme Court, and it wasn't maybe as hate-filled or as angry as what we see today,
Yeah.
but it was a divided country, and sort of sat back and said, there are so many things about this country everybody can be proud of.
Yeah.
And the word even back then, patriotism, was sort of being used as a weapon, as opposed to what it used to be was
Yeah.
a virtue. And so
Yeah.
we started our first series was the American Patriot series.
Yeah.
And we focused on these great things that would bring people together.
Yeah, incidentally, Ryan was asking earlier today, was it always this divided?
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember a debate with Al Gore and George Bush. I actually thought Al Gore was going to hit. It looked like he was posturing to hit him at one time.
Well,
it was. I forgot. It did, and it was decided by the court. It was kind of heated back then.
It was
wasn't
heated back then. But the point of the matter is, I think what we were trying to do was to let people get a sense of reassurance that there is something good about this country,
Yeah.
and this is one of those things. That's where I was
And
going with this.
How'd you do that with like what types of shows?
So
were
we
you-
did a lot. It ended up being a lot with the military. So
Oh.
one of the programs we did was with Arlington National Cemetery, and we
Okay.
did sort of the official video for Arlington Cemetery, and it was based on. I remember the premise we came up. I used to just love to go to Arlington Cemetery, and when you walk into Arlington Cemetery, there's a little sign that says you're entering our nation's most sacred shrine.
Oh, wow.
And the most hallowed portion of that everybody knows is the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Okay.
And the whole original idea of this is, what does that say about our nation, that the most hallowed portion of our most sacred shrine is dedicated to people whose names we don't even know?
Wow.
I mean, that's a profoundly American idea, that our greatest heroes of all are people who are just everyday people just
Yeah.
like you and I. And I mean, and I see that now. That's what I was getting to with testifying before committees, with being involved. Doing those television commercial or television specials. I used to think that everybody in government must be up here. They're untouchable, and there's so many steps between me and them. How do you do it? And I get to interview so many people, from presidents to secretaries of defense to U.S. senators, all this stuff. I realized they're all actually normal people,
Right.
just like anybody else, and
Yep.
they wake up with the same concerns as anybody else. I see it now in my life,
Yep.
and so it might be frightening if you've never been involved, but it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Good. Another curious question, kind of what Ryan and I were talking about earlier, because you said it's good for people to be informed. Do you think people are becoming more informed or less informed? Like I was telling, what we with reality is we have more access to good information if we know how to find it and look for it. But it's also really easy to get on a bandwagon of something. And a lot of times, the more I get educated on the subject, the more I realize how much I don't know about it.
You know, it's terrible because one thing that same senator who I was talking about one day was, you know, I support some of the things Trump is doing. I'm happy with some of the things, not necessarily all of them. I'm certainly not necessarily how he talks, but she's just was morbidly upset one day about
Okay.
something that was going on. And I went up to her and I said, you know what, this is going to sound crazy, but you need to watch the news less. You need to turn it off every now and then. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, because it doesn't matter whether it's MSNBC or Fox News. That's not necessarily being informed. I said, those people are paid. I came from the television business. They are paid by advertisers and their ratings and a number of eyeballs they can keep on that television. The more people they can keep watching for longer periods of time. And they know that the way to do that is you keep everybody either in a state of fear or a state of anger all day long,
They gotta be
every
tuned
day.
in.
And so they take these things, and I've talked to people, I've gotten calls from people, can you believe what so-and-so congressman from Southern California said? Isn't that terrible? Like, what are you even talking about? It's some random
Yeah.
congressperson who's giving a speech before an
Right.
empty Congress and
Right.
just said something outrageous. That's not actually information.
Right.
Actual information you have to go looking for. I mean, that's why I like what you're doing, the podcasts. You can dive deep into subjects. These aren't just 30-second sound bites. You can really get into things. Reading is timeless. Great newspapers. And now it's so easy to get the information. I have Apple News, which has me access to Wall Street Journal and everything in between. And I guard what I read very carefully because there's a lot of fluff out there. But you can find great articles. That's sort of our duty, is to become genuinely informed. Not just find a website that validates everything you've ever believed and then sit in a perpetual state of outrage. That
Yeah.
doesn't help you or anybody else.
Right. I agree. It is good to dig. I like to, I don't even like if somebody gives a speech, I don't like to see the 3-minute snippet,
Yeah.
especially if the speech is riling people up. I have to take the time to watch the whole 45 minutes because I find that a lot of times you've got to see the whole context of something. When bills get passed, or sometimes a bill doesn't get passed, like how in the world could they not pass this bill? Well, then I'll oftentimes read the whole bill. And there's a lot of times a very good reason why they didn't pass the bill. You know, part of that bill would have been great, but there's a good part of that bill that I'm really glad they didn't pass it, you know.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but it does take time. You've got to, take the time to
I
read
mean,
it.
we have access to information like we never have in the human
Yeah.
history, but I think it's become that much more important that we're responsible
Yep.
about what we choose to consume, you
Yeah.
know, because you've got to be able to separate the fact from the fiction.
Can you share a story where a citizen brought you an issue and it became real legislative work?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, let me think of it. Yeah, I just gave you that example about the Mackinac Island ferries. I mean, that's something we're still fighting today.
Yep.
The people of Mackinac Island, it's a complicated deal. They have the only way to get to that island reasonably is through ferries.
Right.
We're in a situation where the same company has now owns all of the ferries and all of the docks, and the price is skyrocketing. And so Mackinac Island, the people who live on the island and own businesses there, brought a bill to me to help address that.
Okay.
And I took that through. It's totally their mission. But again, if I didn't take it up, who would take it up?
Right.
And we're dealing with a lot of those things. Some of them are more high-profile issues. You know, we hear a lot about human trafficking these days. And so I've sort of taken that on lately, introduced a package of bills to really clamp down on that. This is a big issue that people back home, a lot of people saw that Sound of Freedom movie a couple of years ago, and
Okay.
that really moved them. There's a lot of that stuff, but more of what
That's,
we do.
again, it would be an area that a lot of people, I don't know that much about it. You'd be shocked when you learn a little bit about it. that it's prevalent.
It is. I don't want to take you off your course, but you
No.
want to hear? Okay.
Yeah.
So this came from, and it's funny because our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, and I are on other planets politically. There's
Yeah.
no question about it. But I heard her give a speech, or she said to somebody that she thought there would never be meaningful legislation passed on human trafficking because what she said, it made me mad at first. She said, because so many legislators are paying for sex. I'm like, what is she talking about? I mean, I've never seen
Yeah.
anything like that down
Right.
here. So but I got to thinking about it, that if she really believes that there's not legislators who are willing to do meaningful legislation, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
But I realized, and I talked to her, and I said, when you said that, that made me mad. I thought you were being political. But forgetting that, I'm willing to do whatever it is. But I don't really even know what's going on here. And they've been great to work with. You know what they did is they took an hour and a half with me to explain. I had to admit, like you, I didn't really know what it meant. I kind of have an idea that it's something horrible. But they walked me through what's happening in Michigan. It's horrible. And it's not a white van pulling up at Walmart and kidnapping someone. That happens, but not very often. This is much more insidious than that. And once we learned that, we got together, and this is how it also works. So I said to them, I am not an attorney, and I'm not a law enforcement person. So you're going to have to design these bills. My benchmark is that whatever we introduce, I want to know for a fact. You can't just make human trafficking go away by law. It's already illegal. But I want to know for a fact that 2 years from now, we're going to wake up and there's a significant number of women who would have been trafficked that morning but aren't because of the bills we did. And that's what they gave us. So
Wow.
that's why. Now, here's the thing is, all the temptations as a conservative Republican is to never work with Dana Nessel on anything. That's what people want, us polarized. They
Right.
want us fighting. But if we get this passed, we are literally going to save lives by us being willing to reach across and work with somebody who's different from us. And that's, I think, what good government is.
What's in the bill that would do that?
Well, it's a number of things. One is it really, really stiffens the penalties, that side of it. The biggest, right now you could go to prison for 20 years if you traffic a child. This takes it up to life. But the biggest difference is we're also going after the demand side of this. So it's not just going after the people who are trafficking, the young woman or the child or what have you. It's also going after the people who are hiring their services, who think they're just having a good time, but meanwhile their actions are enslaving this person. And so that's going to be the big difference.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get it passed. I mean, I don't know why we couldn't, but we should be doing these type of things.
Good. Yeah. I did want to ask you, and that's a good example, but I want to ask you about partisanship versus partnership.
Yeah.
And the business side of politics, again, I'm very naive about it, but the business side of politics is that there's Democrats and there's Republicans, and each party would prefer to own the majority at any given point in time. And so there is partisanship, and there is a team and another team, and there, I would imagine, again, I'm from the outside, maybe naive, but there is an effort to be the majority party.
For sure.
And I think on the outside world, we can see that all the time in the news or grandstanding or whatever. But there's a lot of partnership that takes place 360 some days out of the year.
For sure.
And that would be a good example. But do you have other examples as well of just the day-to-day, how the day-to-day goes?
Yeah, and we do have a problem with, partisanship is normal. I mean, I am a Republican for a reason because certain views that I have tend to fall within the Republican Party, and they always have. And yes, I would like to have the majority, and I'd like to have the majority because then we control the agenda. We're the committee chairs. We decide what gets voted on, those type of things. But what we're seeing these days is a radical partisanship, which is not healthy, I think.
Okay.
Because there is such incentive to appeal to our base back home by bashing the other guy in the face. I mean, this is what people tend to be clamoring for. And,
right.
Everybody complains about radical partisanship and about this terrible political environment and all the gridlock that happens as a result. But then they play right into it by voting for more people who are just distempered, angry people who want to bash the other side. So
right.
I think there's a role for parties, for sure. But we need to start electing people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and work. And I will say there is one good thing that does happen. And again, this goes back to the influence of the media. Most of the bills we pass are like unanimous. Republicans and Democrats, because they're on boring things like
fixing. You never hear about them.
No, you never. There may be a little water policy
Yeah.
here or there. There may be
Yeah.
something to do with electrical power or energy or these type of things. Most of the things don't make headlines at all, and those don't even get reported on when government is working. But it's sort of like they always say in media: if it bleeds, it leads. So everybody zeroes in on these couple of really divisive issues without realizing that the work of government is actually kind of plain. And I was talking to somebody who's running for U.S. Senate, a Democrat, the other day, and we both agreed that government needs to be way more boring. Like, people need to go on and live their lives, and like we're sort of best when we're seen and not heard, and things just kind of work.
Right.
This isn't a dramatic thing. If I want a drama, let me watch the Tigers game or something like that. Government, you just sort of, we shouldn't be paying this close attention to it. It's not that interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. You guys do amazing work, but yeah, it is front and center these days, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So when someone brings you an issue, do you have a process for vetting it, for seeing the legitimacy of it? Or what's that look like?
Well, I'll tell you what, they sort of talk to us about, there's a little mantra around here, not a lot of people follow it, but where you decide your votes based on your conscience, your constituents, and then your caucus, meaning your party, and in that order. And so when somebody brings to me an idea, I mean, I first have to see, I was elected based on certain principles. I was very honest about what I believed in and stood for when I was elected, and that won the election. So I feel at liberty to say, no, this doesn't fit within like a core principle that I believe. But if it's reasonable, then we'll decide to pursue it. And this is where it's actually really helpful that there's so many groups, associations and lobbyists and these type of things. There's no way I can know enough to do this job without groups that are representing the energy industry or you name it, bankers or any of these type of things. So I'll typically, if I'm brought an idea that seems reasonable, talk to the Michigan Bankers Association or something. You know, is this reasonable? What do you think about this? And they will have more than likely heard about it if it's a real issue that affects banking. And I'll get counsel from them, and then we'll work together to craft a bill and then introduce a bill. And it is sort of then the fight begins. I got to start negotiating with people to even get my bill brought up and hopefully win enough support. I mean, in that sense, it's sort of refreshing because the system is what it's supposed to be in that way.
So lobbyists then get another bad rap out in the public. But how do they function?
So they function. They all have, and that's the funny thing. We know they have an agenda, and usually, you know, if you're working for an oil company, I know that anything you say is going to be pro-oil. But I also am a big enough guy that I know how to meet with the people on the other side, and so you present your case. And my job is to discern, to the best of my ability, what's right in that. But there's a lot, you know, people think of lobbyists and all this corruption and stuff they imagine happens in government. I mean, I may be naive, but I haven't seen any of it. I really haven't. I've heard stories. You know, we have a Speaker of the House from a couple years ago who's facing some serious allegations, but this is really rare. Most of the people are trying to do a good job, trying to learn what they can. Lobbyists are paid to do a job, no question, but they provide an important function in terms of helping us decipher information. You know, but cyclists, they have a lobbyist. There's a lobbyist for, you're a big cyclist. There's a lobbyist. How else am I supposed to find out about what's important to cyclists? I used to be a cyclist, but it's been a lot of years. And so they come and we have meetings all day long with people, and they're telling me about issues or ideas for bills and these things that they're working on. So I find it really helpful. So.
I think that's the key is, I guess, I don't know, maybe the general public thinks the lobbyists can influence everything, and the general public believes that lobbyists have an agenda, which of course they do. That's their business. And don't realize that maybe people in government have the ability to also understand that they have an agenda, and they can...
Yeah, absolutely.
We can all accept that. You know, we're all making a living. We all have some agenda on something.
I mean, I could see how it can be abused. If you were an unscrupulous politician who only cared about their own reelection and had sort of no moral principles, I can see how there would be a problem. There's no question about that. But, I mean, I've been, even, especially when it comes to campaign donations, I've been given donations. I don't even know where some of these things have come from, but there was one in particular that I got, and the way that normally works is you put out your views, and then you're going to support somebody who naturally gravitates towards your views. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
You're not going to change, in most cases, if I think this, you think this, you're not going to give me a check and all of a sudden I'm going to change my view. So I've had one group in particular, that I don't know why they donated my campaign. I must have said something they liked. But then an issue came up that I was on the exact opposite side. I voted my conscience on it. So I'm assuming they're never giving to me again. That's just fine. That's the job. You know, you have to, if you're unscrupulous, you're going to have it backwards. You're going to vote however you think you're going to get the money. If you're here to do a good job, which I think most people are, those type of lobbyists and corporate donations, campaign donations, I mean, they just support who they like, and they don't support who they don't like. So.
You haven't seen where the money influences the vote as much as the person's what they're trying to do influences the vote.
No, I haven't seen it at all, frankly. So I mean, I'm sure it does happen, but a lot of times too. I mean, this is a different thing. People always talk about campaign finance, like, oh, look, all these politicians are out raising money. They go to signs. This isn't like going to something fun, yard signs. This is an expensive deal running for office. We need these donations.
Believe how. I mean, the job kind of blows me away when you look at how much money. Of course, the president was $1 billion was spent last time, but how much money gets raised in order to get elected? It's really a crazy kind of a.
Yeah, it is.
Financial
it's expensive
system.
to run. It really is. I mean, running television.
How are you going to get elected if people don't know who you are and what you want to do? And it makes sense that you got to raise all that money, but my goodness.
No, it's a hard work. I mean, it's an odd line of work. I mean, it doesn't make rational business sense to go into this line of work because you're totally exposed to everybody. You're under the gun all the time. People are criticizing you no matter what you do all the time. You get paid $70,000 a year. You know, it's not you're not making a ton of money. You have to raise all the. But I think people have to remember that you do this as a sense of civic duty or as a public service. I really believe that. I feel called to do this right now. And I feel like all of my life experiences and the blessings I have have been for a purpose and to make a good impact in government. And so, and I think a lot of the people who are here think that way too.
Was there something that you saw or experienced that you're like, gave you the decision, I'm going to get out of film and I'm doing this?
Yeah, it's funny because I had always thought, I studied political science in college and always thought I'd get into politics, but went a different route. And we produced, those great films and built a nice company of it. And it was always sort of off in the future until March of 2020. And frankly, at that point, we were doing a lot of advertising for car dealerships and other things like that. That was our bread and butter. COVID was ramping up. I had kids, my youngest was in kindergarten, my oldest was in grad school. All four of our kids were studying at home in our little northern Michigan home, all online, and the government just called me non-essential. I was non-essential. I thought, what in the world? Somebody's going to call me non-essential. I'm essential to these kids. Somebody's got to pay for this family. And then I remember I think it was March 30th, I looked down at my phone. We had lost a bunch of clients because they were forced to close. And our last client, I saw it and I said, I know what this is. Because it was a car dealership in southern Michigan and they weren't allowed to be open. So they don't need to advertise if they're not allowed to sell cars. I thought, what am I supposed to do? And I remember I went outside and I was sort of depressed and I had been cleaning my yard up out there, at least if I can't work, not because I don't want to, but because, we weren't able to. And then, so I was cutting down all kinds of trees, and I had all these burn piles. And I looked down at my phone, and I saw that there was a statewide burn ban because of COVID. I'm like, what the heck? I can't even clean up my yard. I'm not essential. I'm not allowed to work, and I can't even clean up my yard. This is crazy. That this is where our government has this much power. Like literally, that was it. And so I hadn't been involved in any of the county Republican politics or anything like this. We had done a lot in Washington and had a lot of experience, not sort of through our films, but so I said, And a thought raced through my head that my predecessor was term limited out.
Okay.
I barely followed it at all. I called somebody to confirm, is he term limited? Yeah. And I told him, I said, because we had the same barber, and I said, I wonder, maybe I should run for that. He goes, I think that'd be a great idea.
Oh, no
I
kidding.
went inside and told my wife, said, what do you think about me running for state house? She said, I think that's a great idea. My parents happened to be stopping by. They confirmed it. So I had no idea what to do, but it was less than 2 weeks till the...
That's amazing.
It was less than 2 weeks till the filing deadline, and I had no idea how to do this. So I went and I
amazing.
figured it out online, and we just went for it, and it won. So,
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was wild.
Wow. That's incredible. I wouldn't have guessed that. That's how it got started.
And I'd always been fascinated by this and gotten
Yeah.
to know a bunch of people in Washington.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly. And I ran it like a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
That's what I knew how to do,
Yeah.
and people liked the message. And
So what's your area?
so I represent Northwest Lower Michigan, from
Yep.
Leelanau County and all those beautiful areas through Traverse City,
Yep.
Harbor Springs, where I live, and then across the bridge to all the way up to Sault Ste. Marie.
Yep.
The eastern
And how
peninsula.
far west in the UP?
Sheboygan County. Yeah, Sheboygan County's mine. So we have basically the northwest coast.
No, of the UP.
Oh,
you
of
get
the
up
UP.
to
I'm
speed.
sorry. How far
Yep.
west? I have Mackinac and Chippewa counties.
Okay.
Just the eastern UP. Yep.
Okay. So Chippewa, how far does that go? It doesn't make it to Nobbin Way, right?
No. Well, no. In fact, that's in Mackinac County, and I only have most of Mackinac
Got
County,
it.
but not the
Okay.
west. they jerry rigged these things. That we just had a
Yeah.
redistricting commission,
Yeah.
so it's a funny little boundary there.
Yeah.
So I used to have Nobbin Way when I was in the house. And
Okay.
I loved that place because I loved moofin fries.
Isn't that great?
My wife loves it too.
I
We go up
love
there
that.
for
Yeah. And that's a cool family too. I can't think of the name right
Flat,
now. But
Wayne Flat.
Okay,
Wayne
yeah,
and Laura.
Wayne. That's
Yep.
right.
Yep.
But his son had 906 Hunt, I think, the
Oh,
little
yeah.
shop in town, and then he was helping his son out get that shop going, and then they bought the restaurant and
Yeah.
opened Moo French Fries. And
It's a great little restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a real destination. So,
yeah, we usually hit that each time we leave the UP.
That's great.
I'm glad you're in the UP. That's where my heart is.
Yeah.
I love the UP, and
So do I.
as you know about my bike ride, we bike through your area. We go from the Sioux to St. Ignace, so
That's
we
amazing, yeah.
cover that whole.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is really pretty.
Yeah.
A lot more farmlands on that side of the
sure.
area.
Yep.
Thing about that bike ride is the entire UP is totally different.
It is,
So
yeah.
each day is completely unique from a wilderness experience
bet it is.
standpoint.
'Cause
You'd
you
think
get
they're all.
mountains and then
Yeah,
all the
we
way
got
to
the whole thing, and every time you leave a Great Lake, you go up elevation. Every time you go toward a Great Lake, you're going down elevation. And in the middle is a lot of rock and iron and woods, and then you've got the farms on your side and farms down by the Menominee side. So it's really unique. Yeah, it's a unique bike ride. It's a big place.
bet it's a
The UP is
great
a
bike ride, yeah.
great, huge place. But that ride going around the perimeter is the same distance as Detroit to Disney World.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's,
I think when people show up, if they all knew that, maybe they'd be afraid to sign up for it.
from Detroit to Disney World.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because if you said, I'm going to go, I think over the next 10 days, I'll ride my bike from Detroit to Disney World, you're like, that's kind of nuts.
So could you guys
But
go
if
all
you
the
said
way to,
over 10 days, I'm going to ride my bike around the UP, like, that doesn't sound too bad.
do you go all the way up to like Copper Harbor? and
The
things?
whole thing,
Oh,
yeah.
So spectacular.
Yeah, so we start in my hometown of Manistee.
Yeah.
So the overnights are Manistee, Escanaba, Iron Mountain, Ironwood, Houghton 2 nights, because we get to Houghton and then we do Copper Harbor the next day.
Okay.
And then Marquette, Grand Marais, Sault Ste. Marie, and St. Ignace.
That's great. Yeah, what
Yeah.
a beautiful trip.
Well, the other thing about the UP bike riding is there's about 18 vehicle-to-bike accidents a year. Downstate, there's like 1,300.
Oh, wow.
And that's a huge landmass, and it's not like there isn't people there. You get millions of visitors a year, but it's just an amazingly safe place to ride your bike.
That's amazing.
And that's why I
didn't know
started it. I was trying to bring awareness to all the rural roads that don't have cars on them.
That's great.
And go up there and ride your bike.
That's good. Do you ride the Scenic Stretch or probably not? You're probably north of that.
Nowhere near the Scenic Stretch.
Yeah, okay.
We're
you're
north of that.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
wild to drive, though.
Yeah,
Just
I know.
Sit back and go straight.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever noticed. So my car has got a little compass on it with the degrees, and it is a dead west.
Yeah.
It doesn't vary at
At
all.
all. Not even a low curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even a hill. I think I even checked the elevation. It measures the elevation. I don't know. It's like 5 foot change or something like that.
That's great. That's great.
One time, this is years ago, Munising had a marathon on it. They only did
did
it.
they really?
They only did it once. It's got to be horrible. So they started in Shingleton and ended in Seney,
Oh my
which was
goodness.
26 miles, but 23 of that is on the Seney stretch.
It's just straight.
I cannot
mind-numbing.
even imagine that.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that one. But I think they did it 1 year. They did it. That was it. I've got another question for you, but is there anything else from your perspective that I didn't ask that?
Well, no, other than, I mean, to get past what everybody's seeing on the news, which is
Yeah.
we're in the middle of a federal government shutdown. We almost had a state government shutdown. People do need to really activate. And if you're not, if you believe in good government and you're not out there on the extremes, you know, by definition, you're probably focusing more on your regular life, which is a
Yeah.
good thing. That's what you should be doing.
Right.
But we need those people to get really passionate about politics, or we're going to see more of the same craziness right now. Because all the incentive, I guarantee you, I'm going to get a primary challenge, you know, this year because of my willingness to work across the aisle where it's appropriate. If I had the incentive as a politician is to just toe the party line. I wouldn't even have a primary. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I'm in a Republican
Right.
district. I just walk into re-election. But by pushing the envelope, by trying to sort of work with other people and see where we can get compromise and make bad bills better when we're in the minority, or since we're in the minority, that's sort of what I can do.
Right.
That's going to open me up to a primary because of the way our system is set up and because of the people who tend to get most involved in this. So if this is where you can really have a say. People's votes do matter.
Yeah.
People's contributions matter, and people, the support that they passing it along to friends and family. This stuff matters, and if we don't get involved, we're just going to have more craziness nonstop.
So, I mean, we want to have more across the aisle. Everybody you talk to, that's everybody I talk to, it seems like that's what we want more of. But it also exposes you to more risk of reelection at the same
more,
time.
but because think about it, the most committed people who will wake up on the morning of a primary and go vote in August are the people who are the most hardcore and ideologically driven, and that's great. I have solid ideological convictions, but oftentimes that's not representative of the mass of people. And whereas a lot of people are just going to work that day, they're not living and dying based on every, hanging on the edge of their chairs, waiting to see what's going to happen in Lansing next. But until they get to that point, we're going to get more of what we're getting.
I haven't looked this up, but I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. Do you know what percentage of the population even votes?
Yeah, it fluctuates. And fortunately, in recent years, it's been higher, but it's been overwhelmingly low for decades.
Like half? Or?
Yeah, it's
Is it really?
neighborhood. Yeah, I haven't seen the most recent figures.
Wow.
Now, last presidential election, I think, was a record turnout. And it is changing. So.
Okay.
But people need to get involved. And they need to be vocal and let others know we're not tolerating this garbage anymore. We want people to work together and get things done.
Yep. Celebrate that, reward that, be happy about that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, I got another question for you. The name of this podcast
Health is a
is,
choice. Boom.
so I don't want to frame your answer by any means by telling you that, but do you think wealth is a choice?
Well, I think the decisions that get you to wealth are a choice.
Okay.
I mean, starting back when we're young, if you're out there just going crazy, indulging your every whim and these type of things, those don't tend to lead towards the making responsible decisions that you need to make to get towards wealth here. So I certainly think choice has a whole lot in it. I'm sure that's not necessarily how you mean it, but certainly that choice lends to a lot of good decisions or bad decisions along the way. And I'm not the one who has. I just chose to come into this line of work, which doesn't lead towards wealth, but it leads towards wealth in a different way. Because I do feel, my wife and I both made that decision that we could be making more money by doing other things. She works at our church now, and I'm doing this. But we feel called to make an impact. And so to us, what we give up in terms of salary, we make up for in terms of just feeling like we're making a contribution to society. So that's payment, and it's for. I mean, that's a trade-off, which is a good thing. So.
Well, the word wealth, even when I was using it, I grew up in a real Catholic, family, and back in the pension mentality where you didn't need to accumulate any money per se because you work somewhere and then you retire on a pension. And so this wealth can have a stigma as a bad thing, but I use wealth very broadly, not just monetary.
That's
but
great.
you know, life itself. And but when you use the word rich or wealth or something like that, it can take on a different meaning
Sure.
for some people. But no, I think like what you're saying, I agree with you. Where it's the choices you make and how you want your life to turn out.
Yeah, it was so interesting. So we have decided by our decisions, we're not able to take some of the big trips we'd like to do. We're not
Yep.
able to, have a huge boat or something like that. But Monday night, Margot, my wife Margot, and I co-hosted a big Right to Life dinner up in Traverse City with Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson. If you've ever heard his story, it's incredible story. And I'm standing on the stage with my wife and
Yep.
Ben Carson. I'm like, this is wealth. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so you choose your path a little bit.
How was that event?
It was great. Yeah, and Ben Carson is something else. Boy,
Yeah.
what a story coming from literal shambles. I mean, nothing to become the world's preeminent pediatric neurosurgeon and to run for president.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he's just humble as can be. He was just really inspiring to see him. So.
Yeah. Well, I think I told you this before. I think maybe last time I saw you. I'm glad you're working for us in government, and I hope that you do this for a long time. I think we need people like you. Every time I've seen you out there, you've got a great message.
That's nice
You're
of you to
very
say.
inviting for people to come and for you to learn from them and to share
That's
and
nice of you to
and
say.
help them.
Well, and you need to keep doing this because, again, we need people to dig deeper in this culture. And I think these type of shows do just that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Great.